DJ in clubs and at Radio Caroline, and a friend of Jimmy Savile. And Teret modelled his behaviour and his depravity on Savile.
He knew I was a kid, he could see I was a kid.
Kathy was 12 when Ray Teret first raped her. She says that 20 years ago she told the police and social services, but her cries for help were ignored. Now she's waived her right to anonymity to speak out.
All these people and all the press and everything, you know, starstruck teenagers, how the hell dare they? They know nothing about what these girls and what we go through with people like him. They know nothing about what it does to us. We're not interested in bloody compensation. We're not interested in stories. We just want justice. They've wrecked our lives. Teret wrecked my life.
In the 1960s and 70s, Teret raped or indecently assaulted 11 schoolgirls. The youngest was 12. With the stage name Ugly Ray Teret, the DJ traded off his celebrity rather than his looks. In the 60s, he'd stride around the dance floors of Manchester's teen discos, showering girls with attention and then taking them away to be raped. One 15-year-old girl was driven to a flat in Salford. She was raped by Teret and says Jimmy Savile was there too. Her lawyer, Liz Dux, says this case is the closest a court will come to putting Savile on trial.
They clearly operated together. Obviously, we don't know the essence of what was behind that relationship. But we do know in the way that Savile operated is that he used people as a conduit for his own sexual perversions, and this is probably another horrific example of that.
The police say that Teret was convinced by his own megalomania that he'd never be caught. His friend Savile escaped justice, but now Teret does face prison. Well, on hearing of the convictions today, we're told by the police that some of Ray Teret's victims have shown elation at the knowledge that he will now be imprisoned. Others say just how acutely this has brought back their experience to them, how deeply distressed they remain. And speaking for the Crown Prosecution Service, Nazir Assel, who's the chief Crown Prosecutor in the North West, commended the enormous bravery, he said, of all of these women in coming forwards to the police and in coming to court to speak out about what had happened. He has put these convictions down to their collective courage. As for Ray Teret, well, tonight he is in jail. He is facing a sentence, but he will discover what that sentence is to be when he's sentenced next Thursday.
Judith Moritz reporting.
Important to go to the courtroom to go and give that evidence.
It's saying to him and the likes of him, how dare you do what you did to me? How dare you? That was my life.
But it can't have been an easy thing to have done.
It was terrifying. It was absolutely terrifying. But I've done it. And it was worth it, and everyone's got a right to do that, to say to people like him, you can't do this, you can't get away with this.
That's Kathy talking to our reporter Judith Moritz. Well, Liz Dux is a child abuse specialist for the law firm Slater and Gordon. She represents one of the women that Ray Teret abused and also more than 170 of Jimmy Savile's victims. Liz, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
How important is this conviction?
Well, hugely important. Firstly, for the Savile victims, we know that Savile raped one of these victims at the same time as Teret, and so it is the closest that the victims are ever going to get to there being a conviction against Savile. So it's hugely important for the Savile victims. But also, as you heard from Kathy there, it's hugely important for all victims of horrific sex crimes that took place many decades ago, who've been brave enough to come forward to give their evidence in court in horrific circumstances and to show that they can still achieve justice so many years on. So it's very, very important. And again, it shows that celebrity and influence and power will not override justice.
It's sad, really, isn't it, Liz, that Ray Teret had a conviction of sexual intercourse with an underage girl years and years ago, which the police say wasn't really widely reported, and nothing ever came of that the way that it came about this time.
Yes, it is, and I suspect it's only when people started coming forward after the Savile revelations and gave more evidence against Teret that he was reinvestigated. And as we hear from Kathy, people are taking these allegations much more seriously now. They are listening to victims' evidence with much greater sensitivity. And that is very, very important, that victims feel that they can still come forward even now and give evidence, and that they still will achieve justice.
How does your client feel today, Liz?
Well, the giving of evidence in court will have been absolutely traumatic for her. She'll have lived with this for many, many years, not able to tell anyone. The shame of it on these young girls, as you heard from Kathy there, I think they all felt very, very similar. And today will hopefully give some sort of closure. I'm very pleased that the judge has adjourned the sentencing until next week, and so he can take into account the effect that these assaults have had on the girls' lives. That's very, very important, that the sentence reflects the damage that has been done.
Liz Dux, thank you, a child abuse specialist from the law firm Slater and Gordon, who represents one of the women that Ray Teret abused. 14 minutes past 5.
The health regulator, the Care Quality